chapter. Okay, this chapter did the thing that I feared it was gonna do. You remember at the end of the last chapter when that bomb went off? Well, do you remember this bit right here? And this bit right here? Yeah, that's what happens, guys. That's what happens in this chapter. And I'm sorry, I have to call them out on this. Like, why? Why was that a thing? I mean, I would have accepted it if the Queen was more like, a bomb, right? Nonchalant about it, rather than being like a bomb or something like that. Go to the title screen. Alright, so this will be chapter 150! Wow. 150 chapters of the series. Like I said, it feels like yesterday since I started talking about this series way back in 2016 when I was in Worcester, before all that crap went on with a couple of people that I used to know, and I had to come back to Manchester, and also the crap with getting the copyright strikes on my old videos, which is why I've had to sort of adapt and do it in this style so that I don't show any panels or very few. If I feel the need that it actually needs to be in the video, but I feel like it's all been for the better. Like I'm back where I belong as a full-blown northerner. But for now, let's just get into this chapter because, like I said, I have quite a bit to say in this chapter. So this chapter is titled 700-Year Desire, obviously a reference to the fact that Gillian or Giron, or however you want to pronounce his name, has been waiting so long, like 700 years, to have his revenge, to have his moment, to stick it to the royal family, and to actually say to them, like, no, this is not right. I'm going to take back my rightful place, and I'm actually going to overthrow you and be better than what you've actually become in this case. But as we'll soon see, life sucks. Alright, so we start off this chapter right when the last chapter left off with Giron's forces actually having those bombs strapped to them and going, "Glory to King Giron or Gillian," and it says, for 700 years seeking to prove their justice, as we have Giron's forces actually surrounding the Queen, so like she's in the centre and they're all around her and they have the bomb strapped around her, so it's sort of like, if we're gonna die, we're taking you with us, Queenie. And they obviously set off the bombs, and she's like, suicide bombs. And this is the thing as well. She says it in a way like she's actually shocked about it. She's like, suicide bombs, and her subordinates are like, "Your Majesty." That actually it's just like a case that got me thinking, like, the Queen might actually die in this chapter, because if they knew that she was going to survive, they wouldn't have been like as surprised as they are right now. And I feel like that was just an effort again by the author's part to just throw us off for the big reveal in this chapter that the Queen's not actually dead. And it was the same thing with Ray as well. That was just there to be a shock moment, nothing else. And I still stand by to this day that shouldn't have happened. I mean, they could have kept in they could have kept in the events, but just taken out the explosion as well. Like, basically what they did in the anime, like how they just cut away and they didn't show the actual explosion itself. That would have at least been a lot better than what we actually got in here. That was the moment that was purely just for shock value and nothing else. Anyway, we get a couple of the demons' faces actually just being tossed aside, basically the ones that were like just ripped off. I believe it's the one that when it was saying "Glory to Lord Giron," that face has just been tossed aside as we see just a billow of smoke with Lord Iverg, and we see Gillen just just staring down something as his subordinates locked on, as we see the Queen just emerge from the smoke, going, truly comical. You didn't even scratch me. Brilliant. All that effort, all that moment, all that character development, basically for nothing. All that character development and that sacrifice for nothing, basically. Why can't Zeus just go more and fulfill what they say out to me? If you're gonna use suicide bombs, use it on the character and actually kill that character. It's the same thing with Pedro and Perospero in One Piece, when Pedro had that suicide bomb and everyone thought like Perospero was not going to make it out, and somehow he made it out as well. Why can't all of us just do that? Why can't they just, like, if I'm going down, I'm taking you with it, and actually fulfill that? Whatever. Let's just move on. It is still quite a badass moment from the Queen when she's like, truly comical, you didn't lay a scratch on me. So it's basically saying that, yeah, your suicide bomb, screw you, because it didn't work, basically. And I know I don't normally like to swear in these videos, but yeah, that's basically what the Queen is basically saying there, just like F you, basically, fuck you, basically, to Gira, and she's like, truly comical, you didn't even scratch me. Before she's surprised, she's genuinely surprised at this point, because I doubt she didn't even expect something like this happening, because I feel like, because in all honesty, with the way Giron is acting in the scene when he's looking down at the Queen, he's not even phased that the bomb didn't even work. So maybe that was probably not his idea of like, okay, what if the bomb doesn't work? We need something else to actually surprise her. And sure enough, they actually do. As the Queen is berating them for not laying a scratch on her, she gets entangled in like the sticky web substance. And she's like, "What is this?" As Giron continues to stare her down. We go into a flashback where we see Giron's forces going, even if we attack in droves, we'll be no match for the Queen. You can kill the regiment houses and their families, but the bloodline of the king is on another level. This is the only hand we can play to take the Queen's head. Okay, so it's basically like, okay, we have one shot of this, and if that fails, then we cannot get the Queen. Like, the Queen is just going to be too difficult for us, and this is actually being proven by the fact that Lewis was quite a difficult opponent to take down. Like I stated this again, it took Nigel, Pepe, Emma, Ray, Adam, Violet, and the no-name guy or Hugo. It took 7 characters in that fight alone just to get Lewis down. So yeah, it took 7 characters working at the maximum, figuring out different strategies to get Lewis off guard time and time again, and even then they still suffered quite a bit of casualty. Like Pepe got basically like glass shot through his shoulder, and Emma got stabbed and taken out. But even then, they still managed to pull through and claim a victory. But it wasn't an easy victory, and the fact that they're saying that there'll be no match for the Queen, that's actually a point to actually bring that up, because again, they're on a completely different level from normal demons. Like the way they just have such fast speed and everything like that, how they could just swiftly kill someone if they really wanted to. And it's the same thing with Songju, which leads me to believe that Songju is part of the royal bloodline in of himself, but he just didn't agree with what the Queen or Lewis were actually doing, and he basically just said, "I'm leaving." But given the fact that he has a similar mask to them, it wouldn't surprise me at all if Songju was actually related to them in some way, if not a brother or an uncle, maybe a cousin, something like that. The forces continue on and explain exactly what the plan is to actually get the Queen and actually take her, and it's adhesive. They'll stop her movement, and if the servants go straight for her, the Queen is sure to slash out their heads with precision, which is of course exactly what she did. Like they decided to attack her, she just went like that, like just basically slicing through them like butter, basically. And they go on to say, so that's when you, our Lord, are going to eat us. all of them, just for the sake of the revenge collective, decided to be eaten so you could live, so you could continue to go on. Okay, so basically they were like, okay, so if we actually die in this fight, and if the queen actually does decide to take our heads and everything, you, Giron, you're actually going to eat us so that we can all be consumed by you, and you can actually gain our strength and our intelligence and everything like that, in order for all of us as a unit to actually overthrow the queen and just take her out there and then. And again, this shows the loyalty that these demons have for each other. Even when Giron was being exiled, they didn't have to go with him, but they chose to go with him because they knew he's innocent. He was innocent, and he hadn't done anything wrong. And it's like, we're a unit, so we're a clan. So if one of us goes down, we all go down. You do not betray your clan. You do not betray your brothers. And I've got to give credit where credit's due, of just like the camaraderie companionship of the demons as well, and how they're just fiercely loyal to each other. And this is something I don't agree with the Control Chaos guys, because when they did the whole Promised Neverland, it's like, oh, we don't care about this. Well, I certainly care about them. And because I've seen, like, they're an actual established race now, and it's like saying I want to get rid of tigers because they eat these other creatures, even though they're an established race themselves, and morally it's wrong to actually kill an established race. So that's something I don't agree with. And what the authors have done in this final arc have actually shown various little snippets of families just interacting and just being themselves, and not actually going after humans and eating humans all the more. They're not actually going out and killing them. They're just eating the meat, basically, kind of like what we do, kind of like how some of us don't actually go out and kill pigs or cows, but we actually just buy the meat to eat itself. It's kind of like that with this situation, and again showing the companionship of the demons, and how they're not going to betray each other, and if one of us is being wronged, we're actually going to join them, and to show just how loyal we are, to show how willing we are to die for this guy. We're actually going to let them eat us so that they have a chance to actually live on and continue living. And again, this is something that I have to like bring up with the Control Chaos guys. It's like, yes, they do have to eat, yes, they can eat humans to maintain their intelligence, but I would argue that they can also eat demons that have also eaten human meat, or demons in general. Like, other demons can eat other demons to maintain their intelligence. That's why they're saying, like, you go on and continue to live so that you can grow and you can survive yourself, and we can actually be inside you and become you, and actually be a unit to actually take down the queen. I don't really believe that they necessarily have to eat human meat to maintain their intelligence. They just have to eat something that's developed enough for them to survive, basically. That's basically the gist of what I personally theorize with how the whole demon structure of their species works. Like, they have to consume something, and if that something has already consumed another thing, then I'm sure they'll be all right. Or if that thing has like evolved to a point that it can sort of like keep their intelligence, then I believe it would be okay, and they wouldn't necessarily have to eat human meat, basically. Anyway, continuing on, the servants go, when this time comes, please eat us. So basically, again, saying like, when the time comes and when we actually have the queen trapped, after she has slain us, eat us and we can move on and actually take down the queen. They go on to say, we'll live on with you forever, Lord Giron. We were delighted to have served you. The rest is up to you. As he's like, as Giron just like absorbs all his comrades, basically everyone that's actually died in this battle, and he's like, I'll take you up on all your feelings. So basically, like, okay, I will agree to these terms. Yes, you may die for me, serving me, but I am gonna make sure basically we all have this revenge. So come in with me. And he basically absorbs everyone. His mouth just extends to an insane, to basically like the length of his body, as he like consumes all the corpses of his servants, to basically give them a chance to actually have all be together, as he states here. All of us together will defeat the Queen. As he and as he finishes consuming them, the Queen goes, "Damn it!" As she tries to move, and she's like, "The more I move, the adhesive is." Before Giran just basically bashes her head in the same manner that I believe this is the manner that basically Charlos in One Piece basically just got battered in by Museguard and by Luffy, but no, more like Museguard, because basically Giran has a club right here and he just basically bashes her in and she's like, blah, blah. And and you can see just like the sheer force of his attack from having absorbed all his servants, and how much more stronger he's going. Like just the sheer whack, and it's like enough to make the Queen go ah, like that. Like just how powerful that actually is. Before Ivok looks on and he's like, "Your Majesty," but before he can actually do anything, a bunch of the other Giran servants actually surround him and basically like, "Don't move a muscle, we're gonna just stab you right in the eye socket." Before the Queen actually just collapses from the impact of the attack from Giran, and she's like, "There's not even." But before, no, it's not actually the Queen that says this, it's Giran. "There's not even a crack in that tough mask. No, that's within exceptions." Before her mask actually starts to crack, just sort of like a little bit towards the bottom, like you can actually see like just the crack actually coming in there, which shows that his attack was so strong that it just basically destroyed the Queen's mask. As Giran actually continues to I believe at this point he's just bashing the Queen's head, and it's like, "Just break, just break, just break, just break, just break." And he's like, "Until I can break it, until I can rip it off, whatever it takes." Before we get enough flashback going, "You must meet your end now, Your Highness. For our sake, and for the sake of our other people," as we see in the flashback, he's thinking back on all his kind of actually suffered at the hands of the Queen, just because she didn't agree with what Giran was actually saying, of the fact that maybe we should actually give the lower classes some of our meat, because again, if they don't have anyone to rule over, what's the point of even ruling in the first place, basically? And that's basically what Giran actually came to the conclusion, is like, look, all the lower classes are actually becoming a dying breed, so we need to actually figure out something to actually to actually have a kingdom to actually rule over, and actually have people to rule over, because if we're not having people to rule over, then what's the point of us even existing as a society in this case? And as he's thinking about this, we see just the Queen's mask just crumbling away, just crumbling away bit by bit from her face, before it's actually completely off, and we actually do get to see the Queen's face for actually what it looks like. And from what I can see from this angle, it's like we've got, okay, the Queen's got one, her left eye is much more bigger, so it's like much more bulged out than her right eye, and she's got a third eye sort of like off to the side here, and her mouth, I believe it's just a regular mouth, or it could be foaming at the mouth here, and until I can get a much more close shot of it, I can't really say anything about it. But in terms of her like design underneath her mask, it's pretty basic. Even less so than what Giran actually had. How he had all those little eyes, sort of like in a jar, sort of like pickles in a jar, basically, in terms of how his eyes actually functioned before he actually got his true form back. As the Queen lies battered and beaten, Giran throws the club away, and he's like, "It's over." As he proceeds to draw his sword, and he's like, "You can apologise in hell," before he goes to stab the Queen in her eye. But as he goes to stab the Queen in his eyes, he's all his subordinates just like tower over. It's like, "We've won in this case. We've won," and this is a case where you should be careful, Giran, because when you declare that victory, like it's over, it's never gonna be over. In anime and manga, that is never gonna happen by saying like it's over. No, it is just beginning in this case. And as the Queen braces herself for what she believes is impending death, we see Giron just actually crumbling away himself. Now, this part really confused me here when I first read it, but I feel like I've got an explanation for it. The fact that he absorbed so many of his subordinates that it kind of overpowered him. Basically, that's the only explanation I can feel. I can feel is happening here when Giron's actually just crumbling away into little little cubes of jelly and meat. Right before he's just about to stab the queen, and he just collapses and leaving nothing but his head, basically, without his body. I mean, he's still alive, but he's still alive for a brief moment, but it's just like his body has just crumbled away, and it's just his head. As the queen's subordinates are delighted, and she's like, and they're like, "Your Majesty," before she actually gets back up, just cracks her head like, "Oh my God, that was painful," is probably what she's thinking right now. And she's like, "Phew, you tired me out a bit." Before Giron actually just looks completely bamboozled by what has just happened, as I was at the beginning, before the Queen says, "To think you dolts had made it this far," just like the smug attitude that she has, like, to think you dolts made it this far, and to think you actually thought you could actually overcome me. Might give you credit for making it this far, but let's be honest, there was no way you were going to defeat me. That's probably what she's thinking right here. And okay, now that we actually get a better view of her face. Okay, so her mouth is actually not not disfigured in any way, but she might also have a little bit of a scar on her face, like sort of like near where her main eye is. Although that probably is just her hair just getting in the way in that case. But if you do, let's see. Yeah, I can't really tell if that is actually a scar on the left side of her face, sort of like right here, or if it's just her hair just getting in the way. But in terms of it, like I said, in terms of her design, pretty basic, not really anything that stands out in terms of what's actually under the eye, not in comparison to Gillian and in comparison to her brother Lewis when his mask got basically blown off. As the Queen holds Giron's head, she states, "I'm shocked that you have the tendency to survive for 700 years, quite frankly. Well done." Okay, so she's like, yeah, I'm quite shocked that you actually managed to survive all this time out in the wilderness for 700 years. Yeah, you have quite the tendency for survival, so I'll give you credit where credit is due on that front. But again, you were never going to defeat me. As she continues on and says, but that as it may, you are really foolish. After having the luck to survive, you ought to have secluded yourself in the mountains or fires and stop thinking about your petty revenge. And this is probably the Queen just basically saying, like, to him, like, yeah, you may have survived 700 years, but it was all for naught in the end, because you weren't going to kill me, because all you were thinking about all this time was petty revenge, without thinking about the fact that maybe we had actually evolved in 700 years ourselves as well. As she goes on to say, there's a flashback. No, not the Queen. There's a flashback where they're saying he was given a purpose, and we were given an obligation to prove that he was right. It's like, okay, give us subordinates saying, like, no, he was given a purpose. He was given an obligation to prove that he was right. So basically, that's all they were thinking about for 700 is just revenge against the royal family, revenge, and proving that they were right. But the Queen basically just gave the big middle finger to themselves. Gave the big middle finger to all of Giron and all of his subordinates, and basically saying, "You are worthless. Here, look, Giron, justice doesn't always win." So yeah, basically the Queen. This is basically the Queen saying, like, yeah, you may think you were right, but sometimes you can be wrong as well, and sometimes justice doesn't always. Sometimes the bad guys actually win, and this is probably the case here, as we with the Queen actually just getting Giron's head and just basically showing it rather than telling him, and basically saying, "Look here, all your subordinates are dead and I'm still alive, and you've got no body now, so basically you are at my mercy right now, Giron. You thought you could do good in the world by basically saying, I'm going to overthrow the Queen and going to make myself get my right dues in the world and get my justice that I deserve. But yeah, justice doesn't always win, and this could be like a great commentary for people that are basically for basically crimes that they didn't commit, and even when they're proven innocent, they're still not getting they're still got not get the justice that they deserve. Like for example, somebody could have been framed for a murder, and then when they found out that that the real person has actually come forward, they're not going to get the life that they once had back, basically. And that's basically what the Queen is actually saying here. It's like, yeah, even if you did manage to succeed in your vendetta against me, it still wouldn't have done much, because you wouldn't have been able to get the 700 years back that we basically took from you. That's basically what the Queen is actually saying here, and saying like, and even though you managed to succeed in some places, look here, all your supporters are dead and you're about to die as well. So yeah, your justice didn't win in this case. I won, so screw you. But it's not just the corpses of Giron's forces that the Queen's actually trying to prove a point here. As we see the corpses of I believe Bayon and his children and Pupa, the Queen goes on to say, no, you've already deviated from justice. You raised your hand to innocent children. As soon as you did that, there was no way you could be forgiven. Your justice makes me laugh. Okay, so that's probably what happened with the way Giron actually crumbled away. Basically, it was probably the gods' way of saying like, okay, you want your revenge. Okay, you can't kill any kids, and because he killed Bayon's granddaughter, I believe one of them is Bayon's daughter, and the first Bayon's granddaughter is the one at Goldie Pond, because he killed her. That was basically his body not being able to handle the guilt of actually slaughtering a child. Even though it was a child of the royal family, it was still a child, and I feel like that's probably the reason why his body collapsed. It's like, I've just killed a child. I don't deserve to be ruling this. If I'm gonna be a king and I have to kill kids, I'm not gonna live in a world of that, where I have the guilt in my conscience that I basically killed a kid to get where I am. That my revenge involved me killing a kid, and that's probably and that was probably with his body collapsing, like he couldn't handle that sense of guilt. So that's what I feel like is going on here, because if not, then there's no explanation of why he just decided to crumble away. So maybe it was his body saying like, no, you took out your revenge on not just the Queen and the royal families, but basically everyone associated with them, and your body, and I can't live in a world like that where I basically just killed everyone just for my own petty revenge. That's probably what's going on here, and that's the idea that I'm getting at, as the Queen goes on to say, these 700 years have corrupted you. You're brimming with hatred. As a thought comes in, Giron's head. It's like, quickly, if I could just quickly regenerate. So he's basically still getting on the fact that he is going to win, but of course, since the Queen has him in the palm of her hands, quite literally right now, then he's not going to win in this case. But that's probably what happened with his body. Like, his body couldn't handle the corruption that the revenge had seeped into him, and it probably collapsed under the pressure and under the stress that it had, and probably was going to have if he actually became king. As the Queen continues on, she says, I actually like the current corrupted you better. So basically her saying like, okay, so now that you've actually discovered revenge and actually discovered how corrupt even you could be, I actually have a respect for you, again, showing just like the true sinister nature of her character, but also showing the fact that of her intelligence as well, showing like, yes, even though I am corrupt, all demons are corrupt, and you've basically proven that I am right in this case. But before she can even continue on, the remaining subordinates of Giron that are still standing are like, we need to help Lord Giron, if we can at least buy him some time. But the Queen actually sees this coming a mile off, and she just basically without any hesitation, just slashes them like right next to her, and just shreds them into about 1 million little pieces. And as they're spying around, Giron is actually witnessing this and saying and thinking, all of you, I won't let this go to waste. Just a bit more. That's basically what he's saying. Like, just a bit more. I need just a little bit more time before I can actually regenerate. Before the Queen goes, right, this is the end, pitiful Gira. And she basically just drops Gira on the floor, and without any hesitation gets her boot or leg or whatever that is. I feel like it is just her leg, like her leg in with a high heel, and she's just basically like basically just squashes his eye like a bug, and that's the end of Giron in this case. In this case, so that's the end of Giron. He's dead at this point, and I don't believe he is coming back. I feel like his story was told. We found out what his revenge was, why he wanted revenge against Queen, and he tried to execute it, and it failed. And this is probably set for how difficult it's actually going to be if Emma actually decides to get to the Queen in time, or if Norman actually gets to the Queen in time, how difficult it's actually going to be to take her down as well. Or I believe what's actually going to happen is Norman's going to enter the room and he's going to see like everyone's dead, including Giron, and he's like going to be like, oh shit. Basically, that's basically what it's going to be like. Norman's going to have a realization that even though he thought he could take down demons, and he thought the plan could be executed well, just the fact that the Royal Family is more well prepared for them than they even anticipated. That's probably going to be a big eye opener for Norman, and it's probably going to lead to the death of his allies, leaving Norman standing and leaving Emma to actually barge into the room and be there and actually see the Queen herself. Basically, I feel like that's probably the only reason why they didn't kill off the Queen, because they want the Queen and Emma to actually have a face down themselves as well. That's probably the only reason why they didn't kill her off. But at the same time, they could have just handled that so much better. From what I'm saying, for example, like I said, like they could have just not made it a surprise for the Queen, like just suicide bombs. Pathetic. Like, she actually knew it was coming, and she actually could see it coming a mile off, but she didn't even care because she knew that it would probably not even scratch her, rather than actually making her genuinely shocked as she was. But anyway, continuing on, as the Queen finishes off killing off Giron, Ivor comes forward and is like, that's it, Your Majesty. You really are the strongest, like just proclaiming that the Queen's the strongest, and she has actually proven that, yes, she is the strongest, which is again going to make the final battle with her, if the Queen really is going to be the final battle of the series, that much more difficult, basically. As Giron goes, not Giron, as Ivor goes, foolish Giron, and he starts to actually just bash Giron's body and just basically bash his corpse in, going, you lowly traitor, know your place. So basically him saying like, you thought you could barge in here, kill us all and take the throne. Pathetic. You had no idea how strong the Queen is, so know your place. You're in the dirt like the ant you are. Ivan continues on and says, you being king, to Giron's corpse, you're a consentant sinner. So basically like, yeah, you sinned against our family, so now you must pay the price. No, you sinned against the demon kind, so now you must pay the price. As the Queen's supporters come over and it's like, you need a new mask, Your Highness. She's like, it's fine. What's more important, I'm hungry. But before she can actually chow down on Giron's head, a lot of it. Yeah, from what I can see, is like there's a lot of bullets like actually just shatter around the room, basically like. That's probably what I feel like is happening here, and it's quite difficult. Yeah, they are bullets. Like just bullets start raining down around them, and as they're just sort of like thinking, what is that? Like they're trying to cover their faces. We see someone actually approach the room as the Queen actually gets an idea in her head, as Ivor as she goes into a flashback with Ivor, and it's like this attack, the matter of the thieves themselves is being orchestrated by someone else. Who is it? As she goes on to say, as the caption goes on to say, mankind's strongest zazie enters, and Ivor's like, no, the mastermind, no, it can't be. Humans, as we see zazie enter the room with just long blades in his hands, preparing for a fight, as and the caption goes, Lambody is the Queen. The battle begins, and that's where the chapter ends. So not as good as the last chapter, particularly for the fact that we got that fake out at the beginning. But again, I feel like it was just to show just how foolish it was for this revenge and how they didn't anticipate how strong the Queen is actually going to be. And I feel like it was just set up in place for the fight, for the battle between the humans and the demon, and just clashing. But again, this battle is probably going to be one-sided based on how strong the Queen actually is and how difficult it was to take her brother out, and how equally difficult it's going to be to take the queen out, if she's even going to be taken out at all. I mean, I feel like it is probably given the fact that the Queen is actually going to be taken down, but it's just going to be near impossible. They probably have, like, in my opinion, a 2% chance of taking the Queen down without them with them all getting out of this alive. But it'll be interesting to see what actually happens, and be interested to see what actually zazie actually is, if he actually is human, or if he's actually just a human demon hybrid or something like that, because we've not actually seen him speak at this point. So maybe that's what's under the under the bag that he wears. Like, he's actually just a human demon hybrid, or some variation of a demon. Like, he is not fully human, because because of the fact of just the way he acts, and basically he's like a sick lost dog or something like that. I don't know. Like, what is zazie? That is basically going to be the question of the week. What is zazie? What is he? Is he like a demon? Is he human? Is he a combination of them? Is he like just like an experiment gone wrong, or something like that? I don't know. But whatever's under that mask, it's not fully human, basically, because we would have heard him actually speak full-fledged sentences at this point. So that's what I'm going to be like going with, that he's a demon-human hybrid, basically. That's basically what he is. Like, they tried to experiment on him by combining human DNA with demon DNA and seeing what came up, and he came out and he was a failed experiment, and they just didn't do any other experiments at that point. So yeah, he's probably a human demon hybrid at that point. But anyway, guys, what did you think of this chapter? Let me know. Do all of that jazz, like, subscribe, comment, or don't do that. It's whatever suits you. And this will be Lash Luke signing off. Later, guys.